Mothers, all the grandmothers, all the great-grandmothers, all the mothers-to-be. They're a blessing from God. Here's what I'd like us to do today. I won't give you the page numbers. We're going to look at about 3 or 4 chapters of Scripture. You'll know the story. You may just not know some of the details, but it's important. This came out of our Tuesday night study, and I just felt really impressed that we should look at this on Sunday morning to give us some hope. It's a story about Joseph. And if you think your life has ups and downs, you will relate well to Joseph. If you feel like at times that God has forgotten you, this story will encourage you that He has not, regardless of where you are. Maybe you know the story that Joseph was he was the favorite son of Jacob, because Joseph and his brother Benjamin, their mom was Rachel. Their older brothers, their mom was Leah. So Jacob looked with favor on Joseph and actually gave him a robe or a coat that looked like royalty, which didn't set real well with the older brothers. In fact, Joseph goes out to the field to survey and give an assessment of what his brothers are doing. And he goes back to his dad and he says, "Oh, they are not doing what you asked. It's not going well. Dad's not going to be happy." Well, his dad shows up. Jacob comes up to the brothers and says, "Hey, I got a bad report from Joseph." And immediately the anger starts. The plotting starts. To make it worse, God gives Joseph 2 dreams. One is where the sun, moon, and the stars and the moon bow down to the sun. And Joseph said, "I'm the sun, and you guys kind of bow down to me." And they say, "Are we going to serve you? Come on." And probably a bit naively and unwise, he says to them, "Oh, and I had another dream, and there were some stalks of grain, and one represented me, and one represented all of you, and guess what? It's just kind of random. Your stalks bowed down to mine." Now, I don't know if you have brothers or sisters, but I can tell you, being the younger brother with an older brother who's much bigger than me, you don't always make it out without scrapes and bruises. Jared's laughing because he knows. He knows. Immediately, the brothers begin to plot. And so the father sends Joseph out again to check on the brothers. And they see him coming and say, "Oh, here comes Mr. Dreamer Boy in his fancy robe, his fancy clothes. Let's get rid of him." So they literally plot to take his life. But Reuben persuades them, "Hey, let's just throw him into the well," because Reuben said, "Hey, we'll throw him in there. I'll get him out later." So they take the robe off him. They throw him in. He can't get out. They tear it apart. They put animal blood on it. They take it back to the father and go, "Here's what's left of Joseph." Not cool. But instead of killing him, they say, "Hey, maybe we'll make a little money off him." So there's a caravan coming by, the Ishmaelites, on the way to Egypt. And so they actually sell their brother. They've heartbroken their father, letting him think that he's dead. They've had ill intent towards him. At least they didn't kill him. But just as bad, they sold him to a foreign land. I don't know if you saw the movie Gladiator, when Russell Crowe and some of the other gladiators who have been scooped up are put in a wooden cart and ride across the desert. And they just sit there, and it's dry, and they just bake in the heat. And the goal of those Roman soldiers or the tradespeople who capture the gladiators, their goal is for themselves to survive across the desert. So they're probably not really going to share the rations with the slaves who are in the cart. If you make it, bonus, and if you don't, oh well. I want you to see Joseph riding across the desert into Egypt like that. And did I say the part that he's probably a teenager? Think about your teen years. These are his teen years. And he's sold into Egypt. They take him there A man by the name of Potiphar buys him. Listen to what the writer Moses tells us in Genesis 39. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph, so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. I don't know about you, but if my brothers, my own family, had thought about killing me and sold me into slavery, and I had to ride across the desert, and I got sold into a foreign country, I don't know how happy I'd be. In fact, I wonder if the first question that would come to mind is, God, where are you? Why has this happened to me? Now, I know, maybe I'm the only one who ever says, God, why me? I see you smiling. Why me? But somehow on the ride across the desert, when he hits Potiphar's house, he doesn't turn it down, his faith. He actually cranks it up. Here's what I want you to hear today. Regardless of what you're facing as you come in here today, God knows, God sees, God cares. It's not like Joseph was just in survival mode. Oh, I made it here now, just kind of pass the time until, my life is gone on the earth. No, when he hits Potiphar's house, he becomes the top worker, the top employee. An example to us who have employers, that we would, not to put anybody else down, but just to honor God, that we would work in such a way. If they ask us, hey, we want to pull you off the line, stop serving food, we want you to go clean the bathroom or go take the trash or whatever, that we do it for God's glory. Joseph distinguishes himself in a foreign land. He's probably still a teenager, but he excels. And I want you to see that in the midst of everything, it says, the Lord was with him. And the incredible thing is the people around him begin to notice that the Lord was with him. And it begs the question, do the people around us recognize that the Lord is with us? Joseph found favor in Potiphar's eyes. He became his attendant. He put him in charge of the whole household, and he entrusted to him every single thing he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So he didn't even think about anything. He just put Joseph in charge. I think that the places where we work are waiting for Christians to be recognized like that. I think the relational networks that we live in are waiting to see some Christians step up and live like that. I think in our neighborhoods, in our homes, that the world is waiting for Christians with such character that regardless of the circumstances, they don't waver. Somehow Joseph knew the Lord was with him. I don't know if you've ever been to a foreign country where you don't know the language. I've been in Africa where they speak Acholi. They speak hundreds of languages, but it's a bit, when you can't communicate at certain times, it can be overwhelming. It can cause culture shock. Joseph goes to Egypt. He probably doesn't know the Egyptian dialects, but it doesn't matter. He can prove it with his actions. Well, the story continues that Potiphar's wife takes a liking to Joseph in not such a glamorous way and tests his self-control and his morality. In fact, one odd day, there's no one else in the house. And she grabs hold of his cloak, and being the wise man he does, he runs. Can I just say a word about this? In the midst of temptation, gentlemen, it's not manly. Ladies, it's not womanly. You don't have anything to prove in the midst of temptation. Just run. That's wisdom. So she's left with this cloak, and when her husband comes home, she says, oh, look, the little Hebrew boy you brought in, he came to make sport of us. I screamed and he ran out. She didn't actually scream. But he did run out. So just when we think that Joseph's life, I mean, you could have ended it right there with him working before this situation. You could have ended it right there in Potiphar's house and he could live happily ever after. God's blessing. He's working hard. He's number 2 in the household. But now this little situation happens. And however bad it was before, it gets worse because now they send him to prison. Potiphar sends him to the king's prison, which he was very angry. But most scholars think that he probably thinks some of the fault is with his wife, because in such a situation, he probably would have been killed. But for some reason, Potiphar spares his life. Let me ask you, if you got sent to prison and for something you did not do, would you have a woe is me attitude? I didn't do it. Have you been accused of something you didn't do? Maybe you didn't have to go to prison for it. Something that you yourself didn't do. How do we respond to that? Let me tell you how Joseph responds. Immediately, he begins to lead in the prison. So much so that the warden puts him in charge of all the other prisoners, which I'm sure they were real happy about. Oh, here he comes again. And I want you to see that Joseph's faith and his perspective of God does not waver. Here's Genesis 39:20. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. Now, Moses isn't on the scene yet, but God explains to Moses, or shares with Moses, that Moses is the one credited with writing down Genesis. And he's always sure to put in there that the Lord was with him. He keeps saying it. Why? Because he wants us to grab onto it. He showed him kindness. He granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison. And he was made responsible for all that was done there. Now hear this. This is the warden and this is the prison. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he does. He keeps having favor with these different people. And I want you to insert that into your prayer life. And here's why. Favoritism, if I give Jack favoritism, it's because he's such a great guy, and he's a good-looking guy, and he's really kind, he always dresses sharp, like the suspenders. I should credit Colleen for that, right? Favoritism is based upon something Jack would be doing. But favor is literally something from God himself, because God himself chooses. And I want to tell you to ask for favor, not that you get preferential treatment, but that God might be glorified in our workplaces like this. See, a lot of times we're tempted that we would ask to be, our workplace to be blessed so we can get a double portion of our pay, more days off, or half the time make twice as much, right?